The ability to control one's own mind is the foundation of emotional strength, inner peace, and resilience against external disturbances. Napoleon Hill often reminded his readers and listeners that no one can make you angry unless you allow them to, and this idea captures the essence of true self-mastery. Every human being is bombarded daily with countless triggers, from small annoyances to larger challenges, and yet the ultimate choice in how to respond rests entirely within the individual. Anger, irritation, or offense are not automatic reactions, but conditioned habits of thought that can be changed, reprogrammed, and mastered with conscious effort. When you understand that your thoughts and emotions are within your jurisdiction, you begin to reclaim the power that is too often handed away to others. The mind is like a fertile garden, capable of producing beauty or chaos, depending on the seeds that are planted and nurtured. If you allow the weeds of irritation, resentment, or quick temper to take root, they can quickly overrun the entire landscape of your mental state. Conversely, if you deliberately plant patience, calmness, and understanding, those qualities begin to flourish. The first step in controlling your own mind is awareness. Without awareness, the mind runs on autopilot, reacting habitually to external stimuli. A sharp comment, a dismissive glance, or a minor inconvenience can ignite a firestorm of anger if left unchecked. But when awareness is present, there is a pause between stimulus and response, and in that pause lies the power to choose a reaction rather than fall victim to reflexive anger. Emotional control does not mean suppression. Suppressing anger only pushes it into the subconscious where it festers and eventually erupts in unhealthy ways. What Napoleon Hill emphasized instead was conscious direction of thought. This means acknowledging the presence of irritation or anger without allowing it to dominate. For example, if someone insults you, the immediate habit might be to feel wounded and lash out, but with control over your mind, you can recognize that the insult is simply sound waves formed into words, reflecting the other person's state of mind rather than your value. You can then choose to either disregard the remark or respond with composure. This conscious choice denies the other person power over your emotional state, reinforcing your inner authority. Another layer of mental control involves reframing experiences. Every external event is neutral until the mind gives it meaning. If you are stuck in traffic, the situation itself does not contain anger. The anger arises from the story you tell yourself, that your time is being wasted, that others are inconsiderate drivers, that the world is against you. By reframing the situation, perhaps seeing it as an opportunity to listen to an audiobook, reflect quietly, or simply practice patience, the negative charge dissolves. In this way, the mind becomes an alchemist, transforming potential sources of anger into opportunities for growth. Controlling your mind is therefore not about rigid suppression, but about creative reinterpretation of events in a way that serves you rather than harms you. Hill's teachings also stress the importance of dominating the mind through the practice of autosuggestion. Repeated affirmations and deliberate mental conditioning can train the subconscious to default to calmness rather than agitation. By telling yourself daily, "I remain calm and composed under all circumstances," you begin to impress this thought pattern on the subconscious, where it takes root and begins to guide behavior automatically. Over time, this kind of training makes it increasingly difficult for external disturbances to provoke anger. Just as the body develops muscle memory through repeated physical training, the mind develops emotional memory through repeated mental conditioning. The power of the mind is also evident in the way attention magnifies emotions. What you focus on expands. If you dwell on a perceived insult, replaying it in your mind and attaching layers of interpretation, the anger grows stronger. If, however, you direct your attention elsewhere, to your goals, to gratitude, to solutions, the anger diminishes and eventually fades. Controlling the mind, therefore, requires discipline over attention, the ability to withdraw focus from what does not serve you and redirect it to what aligns with your higher purpose. This is easier said than done, but like any skill, it strengthens with practice. Each time you catch yourself ruminating on an annoyance and consciously redirect your thoughts, you reinforce your capacity for mastery. Self-control at the mental level also requires understanding that emotions are contagious. If someone approaches you with hostility, it is natural to mirror their energy, but when you remain calm, you not only protect your own state of mind, but also influence the atmosphere around you. Calmness has a stabilizing effect. Anger escalates conflict, while composure diffuses it. By maintaining control over your own mind, you can lead interactions rather than be dragged into emotional chaos created by others. This is a powerful form of leadership and personal power, one that earns respect and strengthens relationships. An important insight from Hill is that mastery of the mind liberates energy. Anger is a drain. It consumes mental, emotional, and even physical energy that could otherwise be directed toward productive goals. When you allow yourself to be provoked easily, you scatter your focus and weaken your resolve. But when you guard your mind against anger, you conserve energy for creative thought, problem solving, and the pursuit of your definite purpose. This conservation of energy becomes a competitive advantage in life, as you are less distracted by petty concerns and more aligned with long-term aspirations. Controlling your mind does not mean you will never feel the spark of irritation, but it does mean you refuse to let that spark ignite a wildfire. The key is to recognize that you are always the gatekeeper of your mental state. Others can knock at the door with insults, criticisms, or provocations, but you decide whether to open the door or keep it closed. In this sense, control over the mind is the ultimate freedom, because it severs the chains that bind your emotions to the whims of others. It allows you to stand independent, unshaken, and inwardly calm regardless of circumstances. This is not merely a mental trick, but a profound discipline, one that requires daily practice and self-reflection. The reward, however, is immense: the ability to live unbothered, focused, and in control of the only thing you can ever truly own, your own mind. When you react with anger, irritation, or resentment toward another person, you are not only allowing them to influence your mood, but also giving them a kind of power over your entire state of being. Napoleon Hill was very clear in his writings and speeches that the moment you allow someone else to disturb your peace of mind, you are no longer the master of yourself. This surrender of power may seem subtle, even trivial, in the heat of the moment, but it carries deep consequences. If someone can upset you with a careless word or thoughtless action, that person has gained control over your emotions without your consent. You may believe you are retaliating and asserting strength when you snap back or brood over the offense, but in truth you are admitting weakness, because your inner state is being dictated from outside yourself. The strength of an individual lies not in loud reactions, but in the ability to remain unshaken. Consider how often small provocations are enough to disturb people for hours, sometimes days. A rude driver cuts into traffic, and instead of forgetting it, a person dwells on it, replaying the event again and again, feeling their anger rise each time. In such a case, the driver, long gone and oblivious, is still exercising power over the angry individual's mood and thoughts. That energy, instead of being directed to something constructive, is wasted in mental turmoil. The driver does not lose, the angry person does. Hill's philosophy reminds us that giving away this power is a choice, and it is a choice that can be reversed by conscious decision. When you train yourself to resist being provoked, you preserve your sovereignty. You become the ruler of your emotional kingdom, immune to the attempts of others to manipulate or unsettle you. This does not mean you will never encounter rudeness, unfairness, or hostility. Those are inevitable in human interactions. What it does mean is that you decide whether those encounters diminish your spirit or leave you untouched. People may insult you, but it is your interpretation that determines whether those words sting. If you understand that their behavior is more a reflection of their own frustrations and limitations than of your value, you can choose not to internalize the attack. In doing so, you deny them the ability to control you. The idea of not giving others power over you extends beyond moments of anger. It is also about not being excessively influenced by praise, criticism, or external approval. Just as negative comments can disturb those who lack inner strength, so too can flattery or recognition become a chain if it dictates your self-worth. Hill emphasized independence of thought as a key to success, and that independence requires being free from both negative and positive manipulations. When your peace of mind is stable regardless of how others treat you, you are truly in command. You are no longer swayed like a leaf in the wind by the opinions or actions of others, but are instead anchored in your own values and purposes. There is also a practical dimension to refusing to hand others power over your emotions. People often use provocation as a tool of control. In disagreements, debates, or confrontations, the one who loses their temper first often loses the advantage. When anger blinds judgment, it clouds logic and leads to poor decisions. The calm person, on the other hand, sees more clearly, speaks more effectively, and often gains the upper hand. By refusing to be pulled into emotional reactions, you protect your ability to think strategically. This principle applies not only in personal disputes, but also in business, leadership, and negotiations. The one who maintains composure is the one who maintains power. Another important aspect of retaining your emotional independence is recognizing that anger and irritation are natural but not inevitable. They arise from long habits of thought, often conditioned by childhood, society, or past experiences. If you have learned to respond to insults with anger, it is because you have reinforced that pattern repeatedly. But patterns can be changed. Just as you once learned to hand over your power to others by reacting emotionally, you can learn to reclaim that power by responding differently. Each time you pause before reacting, each time you refuse to give someone else control of your inner state, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen a new one. Over time, the new habit of calm independence becomes natural. It is also worth noting that people often provoke unconsciously. They may be acting from their own wounds, frustrations, or insecurities. When you see this clearly, their attempts to upset you lose their force. A person who lashes out may simply be revealing their own inner struggles. If you respond with calmness or even compassion rather than anger, you are not only protecting yourself, but sometimes also disarming them. What would have become an escalating conflict can instead dissolve into nothing, because you refuse to feed it. In this way, protecting your power does not only serve you, but also has the potential to improve the atmosphere around you. Napoleon Hill encouraged his readers to cultivate a definite purpose, and to focus their energy on building that purpose. When you have a clear vision of where you are going and what you want to achieve, the petty provocations of others lose much of their hold. Why waste time being upset over a minor slight when you could be investing that same energy into your goals? Each minute spent fuming over someone else's behavior is a minute lost from building the life you desire. Understanding this trade-off makes it easier to refuse the bait. Every time you stay calm, you are not only protecting your peace of mind, but also preserving energy for what truly matters. The discipline of not allowing others to control your emotions is therefore both a defensive and an offensive strategy. Defensively, it shields you from the harm of anger, stress, and wasted energy. Offensively, it strengthens your ability to move forward with clarity, purpose, and power. People respect those who remain unshaken under pressure. They may test you, intentionally or not, but when they see that you cannot be provoked, they often respond with greater respect. By refusing to hand over power, you increase your own influence. You demonstrate that you are not easily manipulated, and in doing so, you establish yourself as a person of inner authority. Emotional detachment is one of the most powerful tools available to anyone who seeks to remain calm, composed, and unbothered by the behavior of others. It is not the cold withdrawal from human relationships, nor is it a denial of feeling. Rather, it is the cultivated ability to see situations and people as they are without allowing personal identity, ego, or self-worth to become entangled in the moment. Napoleon Hill consistently emphasized that much of human suffering arises not from events themselves, but from the personal meaning people attach to them. When someone speaks rudely, the words alone carry no inherent pain. The sting comes when the individual takes those words as a personal attack, as a reflection of their value, or as evidence of disrespect. Detachment severs that link. It teaches the mind to interpret behavior as a reflection of the other person's state of consciousness, rather than as a threat to one's own dignity. The practice of detachment begins with recognizing that everyone operates from their own internal world, shaped by beliefs, emotions, fears, and desires. What someone says or does is far more about them than about you. A colleague who snaps during a meeting may be under enormous stress at home. A stranger who cuts you off in traffic may be rushing to handle an emergency. Even when someone deliberately tries to insult or provoke, that behavior stems from their own insecurities or frustrations. To take it personally is to misunderstand the source. Detachment allows you to step back and observe without internalizing. It is as if you are watching a play on a stage. You see the actors delivering their lines, but you know the performance is about them, not about you. This perspective grants enormous freedom. When you are not constantly filtering other people's actions through the lens of what does this mean about me, you remove the emotional hooks that cause suffering. Instead of feeling slighted, rejected, or diminished, you can respond with neutrality or even with curiosity. Why is this person behaving this way? What does this reveal about their mindset? By shifting the focus outward, you prevent anger and irritation from taking root within yourself. This does not mean you become passive or allow mistreatment, but it does mean you choose not to give emotional energy to behavior that does not deserve it. Detachment also strengthens resilience in relationships. People who take everything personally often find themselves in constant conflict, hurt by small remarks or imagined slights. Over time, this weakens trust and creates distance. By contrast, when you approach others with detachment, you create space for understanding and forgiveness. A friend may be short-tempered one day, but instead of assuming they no longer value the friendship, you can recognize it as a temporary mood and avoid overreacting. This prevents unnecessary drama and preserves harmony. In this way, detachment is not only self-protective, but also a gift to others, because it reduces tension and allows relationships to grow in a healthier atmosphere. There is also a profound connection between detachment and self-confidence. People who are insecure often cling tightly to the opinions of others. They feel validated by praise and crushed by criticism. This dependence creates a fragile sense of self that is easily disturbed. Detachment breaks this dependency. When you no longer need constant affirmation and are no longer wounded by disapproval, you stand on a solid foundation of self-worth. Others may compliment you or criticize you, but neither penetrates deeply enough to shake your equilibrium. This steadiness is what Napoleon Hill described as mastery of the mind, the ability to remain the same regardless of shifting external conditions. One way to cultivate detachment is through mental rehearsal. Imagine a situation in which someone insults you. Instead of reacting with anger, Practice visualizing yourself smiling calmly, acknowledging the words without internal reaction, and then moving on. Over time, these rehearsals reprogram the subconscious to adopt detachment as the natural response. Another method is mindfulness, the practice of observing your thoughts and feelings without becoming them. When anger arises, instead of saying, "I am angry," you can say, "There is anger present." This small shift creates distance between your identity and the emotion, which is the essence of detachment. You are not the anger, you are the awareness observing it. That awareness cannot be hurt or provoked, and the more you dwell in it, the more unshakable you become. Detachment also requires an understanding of impermanence. Every moment passes, every insult fades, every irritation loses its force over time. When you remind yourself that this, too, shall pass, you reduce the tendency to exaggerate the importance of the moment. A rude remark that feels so sharp today will be forgotten tomorrow. A frustrating encounter that seemed unbearable in the morning may be laughable by evening. Why allow yourself to be consumed by something that will inevitably dissolve? Detachment invites you to step back, see the larger picture, and realize that most provocations are fleeting ripples on the surface of life's vast ocean. Another important dimension of detachment is learning to separate facts from interpretations. Suppose a colleague interrupts you in a meeting. The fact is simple. They spoke while you were speaking. The interpretation is often what creates anger. They don't respect me. They are trying to undermine me. Or they think I'm not important. But these interpretations are stories created by the mind, not reality itself. By focusing only on the fact without attaching a personal narrative, you reduce the emotional charge. You can then respond calmly and assertively if needed, rather than reacting out of wounded pride. Detachment does not mean disengagement from life. On the contrary, it allows fuller engagement because you are no longer held hostage by fear of judgment or by reactive emotions. When you detach from outcomes, you can pursue goals with greater persistence. If you are not overly attached to success or terrified of failure, you act with freedom and creativity. If you are not dependent on how others perceive you, you can express yourself authentically. This is why Hill tied detachment to the broader idea of pursuing a definite major purpose. When you are anchored in a higher aim, you do not waste energy on petty offenses. Your focus is on the larger mission, and the small disturbances of daily life lose their grip. Ultimately, emotional detachment is about reclaiming ownership of your inner world. It is the refusal to let others dictate how you feel, the ability to stand apart from the storm of emotions and observe with clarity. It is a strength that protects your peace, empowers your choices, and preserves your energy for what truly matters. By cultivating this skill, you move through life less reactive, more intentional, and far less vulnerable to the noise of other people's moods and behaviors.